I have no idea what it's like where you are, but here in sunny tropical Akron, Ohio, when I go to a store in about July, they have the Halloween stuff already out. Then by about mid-August, it's the rest of the holidays. The rest of the holidays for the rest of your life are lining the shelves in every single store, and they're already playing holiday music. It's too damn early for all of that merriment. I'm not ready to be merry. I'm not even ready to be spooky. But now spooky season's passed, and so now it is not too early to play holiday music. It's also not too early to start thinking about gifts. Whether it's for a friend or friends in your pants. Because you can make this season, this holiday season, very, very merry for the people in your life, including yourself. No judgments here. With Manscaped. Do your little drummer boy a favor and use the Lawnmower 4.0 to avoid another silent night in the bedroom. Then add in Manscaped's top-of-the-line shower products to have people thinking, all I want for Christmas is Yule. The copy says you. I said Yule. Santa cares about his sack. I care about your sack. Look nice when you get naughty by going to manscaped.com and use the code Binge Movies. Scream the code Binge Movies as you climax, because it's directly responsible for your orgasms and free shipping and 20% off till the end of November. You have until the end of the month to clean and dress your hog. Get your hogs ready to get lucky this holiday season, courtesy of Binge Movies and our fine presenters of this very episode, Manscaped. Go to manscaped.com, use the promo code Binge Movies, free shipping, 20% off worldwide. I don't care what country you're in. I don't care what holiday you celebrate. Nobody wants a stinky hog in their face or in their mouth or anywhere near their fun zones. Give the gift of clean hogs at manscaped.com, promo code Binge Movies. So you think you're a 2000s kid? Okay, Al Gore. Get a load of this. It's the top grossing movies of the aughts. And this is the top 10 films of Y2K, 10 through 6. Can you answer these burning questions? Just how high does Millennium Force go?
Great, it's fantastic.
What? It's incredible!
What the is mad cow disease?
What my reaction is that free speech not only lives, it rocks.
Is Richard Hatch still in prison?
But I've got the $1 million check written already. I mean, I'm the winner.
Because you still miss your BlackBerry. Admit it. It's Binge Movies 138. Cow Entertainment. Red Cow Arcade is one of the many YouTube channels that he owns, operates, fills with content on the internet. He has his friends eat macaroni and cheese while he runs 5Ks. It's really incredible. I'm not here. I didn't invite you here for macaroni and cheese talk, although that can come up, right?
Oh, I'm out.
I invited you here because you have this really unique channel that is not nostalgia, despite all the one-up arcades behind you. It's not film reviews, despite film analysis. It seems to be you just taking this this mind that you have for critical thought and applying it to things that like the internet should care about, but you come at it from a completely different perspective. What is your channel? What do you do? And like, what's wrong with you? Why don't you just do the easy cash in stuff?
I know, right? Like top 10 things you can do with your Nintendo Switch or something. Maybe that would work.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a filmmaker. I think first and foremost, that's how I would lead.
Yeah.
But so I made like 4 features between 2006 and 2014. But after that, around 2015, I started doing YouTube, and it was kind of like side/middle content for like when we were between features. We would do some podcasting, or we would do web series. My friend John was like, "Why don't we try this like comedy cooking show, or we'll just try every single mac and cheese we can." We thought we would shoot it on like iPhones, and then it turned, because we're film students, or because we're filmmakers, it turned into this whole thing. And then when we started to get like a little bit of engagement, we started to kind of like have a lot of fun with the audience, where like if Halloween came up, we would not just review, a Halloween themed mac and cheese. We would develop like an entire Tales from the Crypt episode.
Yeah.
And I think like, even though our audience has always been small, we started to have people go like, oh, there's like more here. These guys are just like, it's not our day jobs. So it's totally a passion thing. So we would just start talking about anything that interests us, really. So yeah, whether it's shopping, whether it's cooking reviews, and then eventually, it was mostly a Patreon perk. One of my partners, EJ, and I started podcasting, where we really just, hey, what are we interested in? Totally off the cuff. And then, and that was like next to no views. But then we started talking about like Cinemassacre, in particular, the Angry Video Game Nerd channel. And they were going through like this weird transition where he was kind of trying to outsource, or trying to like get like mechanize what he had been doing by himself for so many years. And it was like a really awkward transition for him. So we were just talking about that again, like to it essentially an audience of people we thought were already like in with us from years of YouTube. And we shot it, it was like, it was a recorded Zoom, and that goes up, and what happens for the first time ever, we get like 150,000 views. Right. I've got like a sweatshirt on. I've got like PJ shorts on. So I've got like these short shorts on. EJ famously is sitting in front of these shelves that aren't painted underneath. And so like it's become to us the video where I'm wearing short shorts and he has unpainted shelves. And
but are you wearing short shorts right now?
Yeah, totally.
All right. That's all I'm here for. Now, what happened to the content you created where it was basically you and your wife and a couple of friends sitting on a couch in a makeshift garage watching movies, skirting content, IP, copyright claims on YouTube?
Are you talking about no views?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we did that for a little while. So the conceit was, I guess, like, in the tradition of Mystery Science Theater, in the tradition of Red Letter Media's Best of the Worst, it was like, what's a new concept in that same tradition where you could review movies that aren't necessarily intended to be good, and have these springboard conversations about them. And I said, well, what about like, what are the statistics about like the number of hours of uploaded video on YouTube per day or something? It's like there's just a tremendous amount of content on there. And it occurs to me, especially as somebody who comes from the narrative tradition, who now does basically all documentary, blog, nonfiction stuff on YouTube, that really nobody watches narrative on YouTube. Like nobody. Like you go to a streaming service for that.
Yeah.
So I said, but surely there's millions and millions and millions of film students around the world. They must be uploading certainly to Vimeo. We all know that Vimeo is lousy with student film projects. So I said, what would happen if we just searched for the lowest viewed narrative film projects? And then we just review them. I don't know, try to offer some constructive criticism if there is something to laugh at. Like I'm not totally afraid of laughing at somebody, but mostly it was in the spirit of let's be constructive. And then we haven't done it as much lately, but every Halloween we do it. So this past Halloween we did like a horror marathon, and sometimes you'll find really good stuff actually. Like they're deep,
I'm sure
in the valleys of Vimeo there is some watchable stuff.
Yeah. So where were you? We're roughly the same age. Where were you in the year 2000? Because, of course, we are here today not to talk about your illustrious career with Troma or YouTube or elsewhere or Vimeo or reviewing other people's illustrious careers on Vimeo or on YouTube. We're here to talk about the year 2000 with movies that, by and large, I feel like maybe don't have the legacy we thought they were going to in the year 2000. I guess we could explore that in our conversations. But where were you in the year 2000? And were you going to the movies? Because it seemed like these are the dying days of monoculture where people actually went to the theater.
Yeah, totally. So ironically, the year 2000 was, I think, like when I became a filmmaker. I was 14. It was when I met my girlfriend who would become my wife. It's when I met John, who's the co-host on Box Mac. He's like 6 years older. So then I was 14, he was 20. So actually he would take me to the movies all the time. And it was like probably when I was 14 was around the time that I was introduced to Trauma. I was introduced to the concept that there were films outside of the 50 or so I owned on VHS.
Yeah, right.
That really is around that time. And actually my wife, who is not a film student, who is not a filmmaker, but has been there for the entire ride for our work, she was actually the one, like her family would rent all the time, like through the 90s and right into the 2000s. So her film vocabulary was greater than mine. And when I watched for this show, the 5 we're going to talk about today, I was like, these movies remind me of you, Nina, my wife. I was like, they somehow they feel like you. They like, because and I'm sure we're going to get deep into it, but it is remarkable to timestamp how different the culture was just 22 short years ago.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Is your wife currently possessed by a film student maybe you taught that you drowned?
She and I actually rewatched What Lies Beneath together. Well, she had seen it. This is my first time seeing it, and she's like, I've totally seen this movie before. Yeah, she was like, she wanted to go for the ride with me on that one.
And that was the one where you're like, this reminds me of you.
Or it will.
Can I have a lock of your hair, by the way?
Yeah. Right.
Well, speaking of, I'm looking at my watch. I think it's about that time. I think it's time that we go back. Yes, 22 years in the past. It's hard to believe. Yes, millennials, you are old and you will die very soon. It's time to go back to the year 2000. We're talking about the top 10 highest grossing films on this episode, 10 through 6. If you weren't here for us for our 90s retrospectives of the top 10 grossing films, at that time we used the domestic box office, but heading into the new millennium, the worldwide box office became a much bigger influence on film and filmmaking. And so it's actually easier now to go by the worldwide grosses. So for those of you in our worldwide audience who constantly DM and complain that these are domestic, these weren't the top 10 highest grossing movies of 1995, I've never even heard of that movie. Well, now we are going global because the box office went global. We're going to start with number 10, a Robert Zemeckis film that, boy, there's a lot going on here, and I can't wait to hear what Frankie has to say. Of course, I'm talking about 2000's What Lies Beneath, which currently has a 47% on Rotten Tomatoes.
He was the perfect husband until his one mistake.
Did you know her?
I had an affair with her. She threatened to kill herself.
Followed them home.
There's a ghost in my house. And now she's trying to hurt you.
Stop it.
Who do you think it is?
I know exactly who it is.
Harrison Ford.
Tell me what to do.
Michelle Pfeiffer.
Something is happening.
What Lies Beneath. Rated PG-13.
All right, What Lies Beneath was directed by Robert Zemeckis with a screenplay by Clark Gregg with a story by Sarah Kernachan and Clark Gregg. It's triumphant return of Michelle Pfeiffer, last seen in the MCU. Folks, you're going to notice that this is a recurring trend for movies in the 2000s. And everybody who was a star in the 2000s is a guest star in a Marvel movie in the 2010s. So you're going to hear me say it again and again. It's also the triumphant return of Harrison Ford, last seen in Air Force One. It is the dubious return of my nemesis, James Remar, last seen in X-Men First Class. This film was released July 21st, 2000. On a budget of $100 million, it made $291.4 million. MILF amnesiac Rear Windows, her neighbor, gets possessed by a dead co-ed and survives a DILF attack in a Hitchcockian soap opera.
Michelle Pfeiffer and her elderly husband attempt to kill one another after too many failed attempts to have sex.
Yeah, this is a very horny movie, right? What's interesting, right, is the year 2000 gives us one in the bottom 10 and one in the top 10 Zemeckis film.
I noticed that too. It occurred to me that like if you look across all of the top 10, there's kind of a filmmaker's regime.
Yes.
You know, like there was a group of you can start to see there was a group of people that were in charge of movies back then.
Oh yeah, yes.
And those people have, to your point earlier about like guest stars and kind of gimmick cameos from the 2000s. They've been very much sidelines. They're really very much not the regime anymore.
Is this the end of Robert Zemeckis? I know he's continued making films, but this year, 2000, he's got Castaway, which obviously goes on to be nominated for Academy Awards and was a huge hit. And he has this film, which is, arguably a very big hit worldwide. Maybe not as critically lauded, but is this it for him as far as like one of the kings of Hollywood, you think? And as a quality filmmaker?
He starts doing all the mocap stuff not long after this. Like Polar Express, I want to say was like 05 maybe.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And then Beowulf and then Christmas Carol and yeah, he kind of like got lost in his own thing. Yeah, I think that's probably true. Unless it was Contact before. I don't know. I don't remember.
I think Contact is like 98.
Yeah, because that was still a big deal. But yeah, I mean, look, in the year 2000, Castaway is a massive film for Bob Zemeckis, and this movie not so much. And I noticed the reviews weren't great now or then, but boy, did it make money. And boy, would it not have made money today. If you took two, middle-aged stars today and made like a kind of a murder thriller about their, disastrous marriage. Spoilers, by the way.
Oh yeah. Full spoilers. Yes. You're welcome to full spoilers here on Binge Movies.
I don't think it'd make a dime.
Well, it probably wouldn't be made, and if it is made, It probably goes to Netflix or Amazon, and it just comes and goes. Here's what I think is interesting about Zemeckis, right? Is it's easy to like meme him as like a film nerd and be like, oh well, yeah, from this point forward, it was crap, But the thing about it is, if you really think about him, he is so involved in between Back to the Future 2, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, in revolutionary film technology. He's involved in the creation of entirely brand new filming techniques or the advancement of filming techniques.
I would add the archival like JFK footage from Forrest Gump to that.
Yes.
Yeah. The guy was instrumental, and I think he thought that the mocap stuff was going to kind of continue that trend.
That's my point. If you're him, it's easy for us on the outside to be like, what the fuck is this guy doing?
Right.
But if you're him, it's paid off every time. That's what you do. You push filmmaking forward kind of in the same way like Lucas did, right? Right around the same time where it's like, we look at those movies now, it's like all green screens, like what the fuck was this guy doing? All movies are pretty much made like that now. So it kind of turns out George was right.
Well, when you were watching this, were you like Phantom Menace was 1999. I'm watching these films and I'm seeing visual effects that were state of the art at the time. And yet Phantom Menace was leagues beyond that. Yeah. And, like this is the first time we've combined CG water with real ass water.
Right.
But like Phantom Menace already had like a fully animated character. So yeah, even though the CG doesn't always hold up for the prequels, I'd say more so than Beowulf. you can very much see like the prequels influence on modern special effects.
Absolutely. And I think it's easier for us now to say like Zemeckis derailed his career in a sense. But if you look at like this point, 2000, he's got 2 of the top 10 highest grossing films. He's done so much with split screen and combining hand-drawn animation with live action performers. And like you said, Forrest Gump, doing the Zelig thing of putting people in, but kind of perfecting it for the time. And he's just done so much, and they've been huge hits with a lot of lasting cultural power. I think if I were him as a filmmaker, I would have gone down the exact same trail of like, oh, well, it's all going to be mocap. And he's not exactly wrong because the Lord of the Rings does it. The Planet of the Apes remakes do it. So he took a left, and it's not actually a complete wrong turn. It's just like kind of a wrong turn. The execution was wrong.
Yeah, the way he didn't accurately predict the way mocap would be integrated into storytelling.
You're right. That's it.
It seemed like the direction he thought was important was, oh wow, our best actors will no longer be constrained to the bodies they inhabit.
Yeah.
We can have a fat guy play an in shape guy.
Right.
That's kind of where he went. Like, I think he was thinking, how can we mocap performance? How will that innovate performances, as opposed to how will this innovate character work? Or, well, I guess that's a kind of along the right lines.
Yeah, so he's off by like decimal degrees, and where it took him was the uncanny valley.
Yeah.
And he's kind of been stuck there ever since, and really is again, like you said, not a cultural force anymore. When we get to this movie, though, this movie is definitely, it's like it's strange. It's strange to me. It's strange for him to make this movie.
What do you think he wanted to do? Did he just wanted to make his own Hitchcock movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's what the weird thing about it is, it's sort of like, if you could somehow, which is just like iterations of iterations, if you could somehow mainstream De Palma, if you could make a baby boomer De Palma movie,
yeah, no,
but mainstream it, because it's I mean, there is a plot point in this movie, which is the next door neighbor is so dick dazed by James Remar, she can't take the orgasms. They're too powerful that she goes into hysteria.
For some reason, the thing I remember him from the most is Mortal Kombat Annihilation. Every time I see him, I go, is that the God of Thunder by any chance?
As a first-time watcher of this, what'd you make of it?
I didn't like it. I thought I mean, by the way, let me just be clear. I love Zemeckis. I think Roger Rabbit, Back to the Future, Forrest Gump, like, gets you a pass for life, basically.
Yeah.
This did come off as kind of a vanity project for him. I thought Harrison Ford was miscast. That was the thing that leapt out at me the most. There's a bit of an age gap there, and I did feel it. I mean, she was 42 at the time. He was 58.
Yeah.
I just hit, like, he doesn't really carry with him the kind of charm this character needed and the kind of malevolence this character needed. I don't think Harrison possesses either for this character. There's probably like a Mel Gibson at the time would have been.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Somebody like that. But so but Michelle was very good. Michelle, no issues there. And I think that the infamous bathtub scene is very effective and works really well. In some ways, it feels like the whole movie kind of is for that bathtub scene.
Yep.
There was kind of, you'd expect it from an innovator, but there was like face replacement CG, and there was some kind of like 2000s pushing it. Some camera motion too, which again is a theme I saw across all of these, where they were trying to use CG camera motion in a way that it wasn't quite ready for.
Yeah.
It was a little bit jarring. But I do I like films of this genre. Typically, I like the Rosemary's Baby element of, like, I know something's wrong. I don't yet know what's wrong, and I'm being chronically gaslit by everybody around me.
Does this movie, in the wake of maybe De Palma, maybe a little Italian horror, maybe a little Hitchcock, does it have too many plot beats? Because she's a woman who gave up her career as a concert cellist or violin player, whatever she is. Okay, that's background. Okay, that makes sense. She was in a car, like, and the thing is, this all is doled out over the course of over 2 hours.
Yeah.
So we don't even find out until like the midpoint of the movie. She's an empty nester. Her daughter's just left home.
Right.
We're made to believe that maybe she's having an emotional breakdown because she can't handle her daughter being away at college. She thinks the neighbor, it's a rear window situation. Like I said, she thinks the neighbor is being murdered when actually she's just having orgasms that are too powerful, which is bizarre. They all work at a university or something, but she doesn't, but they all live in the same kind of neighborhood. Then we find out she's an amnesiac. Then while all this is happening, We then also, she thinks the house is haunted, and she doesn't know by who or by what. And then at some point, she becomes possessed. She discovers her husband's affair. He admits to the affair, but says the girl killed herself when he broke the affair off. Then we realize that's the source of her. She found out about the affair and drove into a tree, and that's why she's saying, is there just too much shit in this movie? Too many twists, too many plot points that really don't add up?
Yeah, and so then the question becomes, why are there? And I think maybe the screenwriter thought that, like, we have to misdirect to all the way up to the third act. And you know, the third act is where everything happens. And so, yeah, like we're going to feed the audience all this data to make them confused about what the real issue is, which I guess is kind of what the character's going through, which is like, she's trying to understand, you know, like, am I a crazy person? Am I just an empty nester? Is it because there's been a lot of distance between my husband and I? But yeah, add to it like his affairs and everything. And before you know it, you're like, I'm losing the story and all the plot. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And then going in that third act, all of those like red herring plot lines, they all just sort of end, and then they all get wrapped up, and you're like, oh, so everything was a diversion that added up to nothing. And the real story is, it is a ghost story. The ghost is this girl that he killed, and now he's going to try to kill his wife. And then it just goes into kind of straight 90s thriller territory with a supernatural element thrown on top. And it's like, okay. And I basically, I agree 100% with what you're saying. It seems like somebody wrote a set piece for that bathtub scene. A doctor, a researcher, you know, shoots his wife up and paralyzes her, and she's going to drown. And she's going to be conscious of her drowning, and she's going to be aware. And then they wrote the movie. They had a really killer set piece. Then they wrote the movie backwards to try to get to that set piece. And sometimes that works. In this case, I don't think it does. I think the only saving grace of the movie is Michelle Pfeiffer, because I think she's always had this switch, and we've talked about it on the podcast. She's always had this switch where she's able to turn on a kind of a malevolent sexuality.
Yeah.
A dangerous sexuality. I mean, that's all of what Batman Returns is.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's Catwoman. Yeah, right.
Yeah, but she does it in a lot of her work. And she does have like some comedic sensibilities and comedic chops as well. And so there's a couple of beats in here where it's like, even though it's a spooky thriller, it's like her reaction to James Remar and the lady next door having sex, and her face and her eyes. She's such a great facial actor because of those huge eyes that she has, and she's so expressive. And we get kind of bought into her character and her as a performer. It's just that everything else around her is like convoluted, mediocre, and kind of boring, and doesn't add up to a whole much. Like I think without her, this movie's pretty abysmal. But
there's nothing
with her,
there.
she's everything. She's the whole movie, and she's the only part that comes together. And I don't feel like it was necessarily on the page. I think it literally is Michelle Pfeiffer kind of pulling this clunky plot along on her shoulders, because she's a much better actress than I think she's given credit for, especially in this type of role.
That's a great observation about her as an actress. There's a certain, like, she has a certain emotional credibility, and maybe it is because of her eyes and her sort of facial expressions. And then also she has kind of a, like, psychologically, I don't know if I trust her. So I sort of like, I'm empathizing with her while I'm watching, but I'm also like, yeah, but you might be crazy, you know? And so then the question is, well, if the performance of Michelle is that good, like, do I need all this window dressing and all this writing?
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, that's
exactly it.
Could you streamline the plot to be much more about like this marriage that is just not working? And so you actually think that you're watching a movie about two people who can't connect, like, focus more on that, cast somebody better in the Harrison Ford role, and then eventually lead up to, no, it's actually much darker than it looks, you know. Maybe that would be a way to repair it some, but yeah, at the end of the day, it feels like it's all about that bathtub scene. But I do like the bathtub scene.
It's a very effective, tense scene. Yeah. And again, the focus, right? The way the shot is framed is everything but her eyes is submerged, and the entire performance is in her eyes looking around.
That's a good
And
point.
so I think
yeah.
Zemeckis knew that. He knew that, okay, that's the money. It's not just that she has these beautiful eyes, because she does, but they're huge, and she's very good at emoting through them.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, like there's, to go back to Batman Returns, there's the scene where she meets Bruce and they're doing like Christmas shopping or whatever, and they're walking down the street, and she like flips in and out of like this vulnerability, this spaciness, and like this, she knows how to like tilt her head and kind of arch her brow enough that these beautiful, very inviting eyes become sinister, you know, and like dark. And like, you know, a reductionist term for it would be like, she's crazy hot. You know what I mean? Like she's like, oh, there's something seductive about this. She's capable of appearing insane and seductive at the same time.
It's not common that you see like a Victoria's Secrets model as an A-list celebrity actress.
Yes.
They're prototypically beautiful, yes, but to get to that kind of that transcendent beauty that I think Michelle has, you have to have something a bit weird about you, something like intriguing about you, and she's got that in spades. And yeah, it's, you know, it'd be interesting to talk to like an animator or an artist about like what's going on in her face that's making us. Making human beings respond, you know. Well,
she's got those pronounced high, sharp cheekbones, which I think adds a little bit of like, I don't trust this person.
Yeah.
But she's got these inviting eyes and a gorgeous smile, but kind of these villainous eyebrows.
Because we're all looking at the whites in people's eyes. We're all trying to figure out what everybody's up to. It's deep in our biology and in our psychology. And when you have somebody who you're deeply interested in, who's also throwing you off, well, that's almost storytelling in and of itself. That puts you on the edge of your seat. So yeah, it's kind of like the movie. There's too much movie there for. I'd love to. I wonder if Michelle could you know today still star in a film and bring a lot of that to it, or if
I
like
think so. I think she could. I think, you know, like what the key scene that is like pulls it all together is actually the possession scene when she's on the staircase and she's seducing Harrison Ford and she's dominating him. And because I'm just going to tell you, as I'm watching that scene, I'm like, there is this thing in the lizard part of your brain that's like, I would love Michelle Pfeiffer to dominate me and look while she looks insane in the eyes. But then it's scary.
Right. Yeah, but there's something demonic about it, obviously.
Yes.
That's what they're evoking. But yeah, this sort of like this temptation parable kind of thing. So there's good ideas here. It's not like it's not just a big old piece of crap. It just doesn't really come together. It feels like it's a little undercooked or something.
It's somehow undercooked and overwritten at the same time.
Yeah.
So, you know, for me, I talked about it at length in another podcast for their Patreon. So if you want to hear in-depth thoughts about What Lies Beneath, go to Spoiler Piece Theater and look at their Patreon.
Why do you think it made so the box office for it was
close to $300 million.
Yeah, $300 million. And domestic was about was 155.
It's a lot of money.
Why do you think audiences at that time, you know, is it just like, hey, I know these two actresses, or I know these two actors, and I, you know, it looks like a somewhat interesting film. I mean, as we already pointed out, just nobody would come out for it today.
No, I think because at that time our parents went to the movie theater.
And you think our parents were like hooked by this kind of thing, like the romance, the horror, the
movie stars. I think this was the era, probably the last. I don't even know that it lasts the entire decade. I guess we'll find out as I go through the decade. I think this is one of the last years where A-list movie stars could actually open movies.
But that would be interesting, is to actually pinpoint the film, if you could, or at least the year when the conventional wisdom of like get a bankable star and you'll make $150 million. When did that end? You know,
like we're going to find out.
We're going to find out. That's the mission.
Because here's the thing, you know, there's two bankable stars. There's Sexiest Man Alive of the 90s, at least one of them. You know, you're right though. It would have been better with Mel Gibson, the other Sexiest Man Alive, but you got Harrison Ford. and you've got the sexiest woman alive in kind of this pot boiler, like semi-erotic thriller, but at the same time, like, you know, yes, Harrison Ford's going down and Michelle Pfeiffer while they're listening to a couple next door fuck, but it's kind of clean.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, it's appropriate for your parents, as you said.
Yeah. I think it's a mom and dad date night movie, which a lot of theaters and a lot of studios were programming those types of movies because moms and dads were either going to the movies or they were renting these movies at Blockbuster.
Yeah.
And that generation, like, I don't want to say they aged out, but very much aged out of going to the movies.
Yeah, they don't go to the theaters, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And then our generation has been kind of, and you've talked about this on your YouTube channel, has kind of been stuck in this cyclical over digestion of our own childhood over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
They've never made a movie for who we are as adults, because who we are as adults is not negligibly different from who we were as children.
Yeah, right. We'll always buy our childhood crap. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting, I mean, it's always a problem that studios have contended with, which is, how do I sell you the familiar and how do I push forward? Like, and what's the, you know, what's the easy money and what's the long-term money? But back then there seemed to be more latitude for it. And I think the home video market probably helped bolster that as well.
Yeah. Yep. If you had to give What Lies Beneath a score out of 10, what would you give it? And where does it rank for you for this week?
Yeah, I gave it a 4 out of 10. So I didn't like the film, but I didn't think it was total junk. Right.
Yeah.
And that is not the lowest. There's another film in here that I also gave a 4 out of 10, but I would rank it lower than What Lies Beneath.
I think I know which one that is. Yes. So I give this one a 5 out of 10, and it is my number 4 for the week. It's also not the worst of the week for me.
Oh, so you said 5 out of 10?
5 out of 10,
yeah,
4 out of 5.
we're pretty close. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, it's time to move on to a movie I've already covered, which means for me, it's not eligible to be added to the short list, but Frankie could resurrect it and add it to the guest list, sending it to the very end of the season for Last Movie Standing. I can't. I've already eliminated it. And after this, I never want to talk about it again. I'm talking about 2000's X-Men, which currently has an 82% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Where am I?
This summer,
Welcome to the future.
prepare for the next generation of adventure.
Fight with us.
You sure you're on the right side?
Trust a few. Beware the rest. X-Men.
I usually go outside in these things.
What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
X-Men, of course, was directed by known and alleged pervert Bryan Singer, with a screenplay by David Hayter, a story by Tom DeSanto and Bryan Singer. It was released July 12th, 2000 on Ellis Island, and July 14th, 2000 in the United States, and a budget of $75 million. It made $296.3 million. The tragic tale of a patriotic U.S. senator killed by an international cabal of genetic elites.
I like it. Genetic elites. I have 20th Century Fox and Bryan Singer establish a cast for the X-Men that would last 20 years.
Very true. Yeah. This is, okay, a little history here. This is the third highest opening day of any film, behind Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and The Lost World Jurassic Park. It is the third highest Friday gross of all time to this day.
Wow.
It is the highest grossing opening weekend for a superhero film at that time, surpassing the previous title holder of Batman's Forever. And it is the only non-sequel and July release it is the highest grossing non-sequel and July release, surpassing Men in Black. At the time, this was the sixth biggest opening weekend of all time. I saw this movie, and I have no recollection, Frankie, of it being that big. Do you?
Well, so I was 14, and I remember going with all my friends, and I remember being a huge fan of the animated series, as were all my friends.
Yep.
And so and I remember having a real media file on my computer of the trailer, that was maybe like 6 frames a second. And, and I watched it and watched it and watched it. And I was pretty like, I think the story of this first X-Men film for a lot of people is that was the first time a lot of people felt as though a comic property was adapted in a faithful enough way.
Yes.
And I definitely felt that way at the time. I was like, wow. And I remember thinking, I can't believe they never made an X-Men movie. I remember thinking that why did it take so long? How come I had to become a teenager? Why couldn't they have done this when I was a child and watching the animated series? And then to me, the thing that becomes intriguing from there is they take lots of liberties with this film.
Yes. Yep.
From the source material. And I don't think people really mind it even retrospectively. And I don't remember anyone really minding it back then. At least that's my memory.
I'm right there with you. I don't remember the movie. I remember it being like a hit, but I don't remember it being a smash hit. If anything, I don't know if I'm just like transposing my feelings about the movie when I dragged my father to the theater and said, I got to see this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're not us and you're not our age, it's hard to contextualize this. The 90s were the X-Men decade.
Yeah.
Between the action figures, which were incredibly popular, most of and it's almost all, well, first of all, there's a legendary run of the X-Men in the 90s in the comic books.
Right.
But that's not even the thing that put it over the top. It was the television series.
Yep.
And you look back, it's a little janky now, but at the time, even more so than Batman the Animated Series, which was a superior show, but X-Men with the animated series was the first one to do kind of serialized adaptations of the comic book run, certain comic book runs. So they would do 2-part, 3-part, 4-part, 5-part, 7-part episodes. And a lot of times, they'd have like standalone episodes, but there were times where there was character arcs across the entire season. And so it was, and then one season would feed into the next, and they would plant seeds of story ideas. And so it was like kind of weird to say now, but it was kind of a mature way of telling stories in an animated format.
I was 7 and I could follow it. And
yes.
I mean, let us not forget that in the pilot, an X-Man dies.
Yes.
Of course, they bring him back and stuff, but then the second half of it is about how grief-stricken the team is, how they blame each other for the death. The terrible leadership led to the death. And by the way, that death was born out of discrimination and bigotry, and that's all on Front Street. They don't hide that. So it's pretty. When I was a kid, I was like, wow, this is. I mean, I guess much in the same way that when I watched Batman '89, I was like, oh, this is not Adam West, and but yeah, X-Men even more so. I think the team element of it, the fact that there wasn't a particular main character, even though Wolverine was obviously a fan favorite, it was obvious to me as a child that he was not the main character. He was just a dynamic on a team. I think that was really appealing.
And it kind of can follow this, and I think this is the challenge of the movies. In a television series format, even animated, the comic books are very soap opera-y, the X-Men. It's as much about the interpersonal relationships of the team and mutants with their parents, and the parents who are evil, or the parents who are good and the kids are evil, and the uncle's evil, but the nephews are good. And you know what I'm saying? And a relationship between a mutant and non-mutant, not discrimination and prejudice against the mutants. It's about like the society of that world, the government of that world, and all that. And I think in a serialized format, you can kind of cover all of that. And then, ultimately, X-Men almost always climaxed in giant splash pages, especially in the 90s. These giant splash pages of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants versus the X-Men, or the Savage Lands, or Apocalypse, or and so my thought has always been, and I've talked about this before, that I think the best adaptation is kind of what, if Marvel had any sense, kind of what they're doing now, which is an X-Men television show that led to an event movie is probably the best way to do it.
Yeah.
And they almost need to be, there's so many of them. It almost kind of needs to be its own and I know they're not going to do it this way, but it could almost be its own universe within the multiverse, so to speak.
Yeah. Like it doesn't culminate into anything until 10 years later or something. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah,
That'd
you'd
be
almost
awesome.
repeat the phase 1 of the MCU
Yeah.
just with the X-Men characters.
Yeah.
Because you could do it. There's so much story there, and it's not really. I think the animated series got this. I think this movie tries to get at this, but I think it's really hard to do in a 2-hour film. It's really about the personalities and it's about the people, and not so much the powers.
Exactly. I think the concept of mutants adds a really, really nice dramatic bit of complexity to superheroes, which is, yes, this is a superhero team, but there are mutants who are not superheroes. I actually remember, again, when I was 7 or 8, it was like I think it was like one of the first episodes in the first season where there were like a bunch of bigots that were bullying this guy that just like, he was a mutant that just was hairy or something.
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't even have any superpowers. Like, I just look different than you. And they were like, yeah, but we're going to stomp at it. And I remember being like really heartbroken seeing that.
Yeah.
And so, and also even just the idea that Xavier's school is a school first and foremost. Again, yeah. The sort of the instructors kind of, fight evil at nighttime. But so yeah, most of the time, most of our MCU heroes, they might not have chosen becoming a superhero, but they're unambiguously a superhero.
Yeah.
Whereas these are people who could just go their own way and it wouldn't be that weird,
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, you're exactly right. And so I think that movies are as much a reaction to other movies as they are their own expression, like all pieces of culture are. Right. And so I think in 2000, general audiences were kind of used to a certain type of superhero film, which was essentially, Superman's dead in the water. We're pretty much just getting Batman movies. But the late 90s, I guess we're getting some Dark Horse adaptations, The Mask. We get a Horrible Steel. We get a terrible Spawn, all of which we've covered. We've had some pulp attempts at reviving pulp characters like the Phantom and the Shadow. Even earlier, The Rocketeer failed, despite its quality. And so it's it's almost as if people didn't know how to make superhero movies. They hadn't figured it out really.
Isn't it true that typically studios would go to filmmakers who didn't it's like they didn't prioritize knowing or being a fan of the characters as when interviewing them for the job. So it was like, oh, get a splashy filmmaker or get one of our studio filmmakers to, it's like, do you think the Spawn costume is interesting? Can you do anything with this?
The exception, of course, is Kevin Smith, who at this time is trying to get Superman Lives off the ground, and it doesn't happen. But again, you got the producer, John Peters, who's Barbara Streisand's hairdresser / producer, who ends up taking his ideas for Superman and making Wild Wild West out of them. So that shows you what their thinking was in the studios.
Kevin may have been one of the first studio filmmakers who advertised the fact that he was a big comic book fan.
I think that's the other thing is it's like, well, you do make one little indie that's kind of critically lauded, and then the next thing you know, you got a $400 million Marvel movie, and you're like, oh shit. And it's all everything's been done in pre-viz, and then they'll change it in post-viz, and then you're just having people, you're capturing single performances in a Manhattan Beach studio on a empty warehouse, and then you're just half-ass chroma keying everybody into the
That's
scene.
The thing is, I get the impression that those Sundance filmmakers who get hired to do Marvel films, I think they're shooting the dialogue scenes almost. The one that comes to mind is in Black Widow, the sort of family scene at the table, which is the best scene in the movie.
Yes,
I'm certain that the director directed that scene, and then the rest of the movie feels a bit like Marvel constructed it.
Yes.
And so.
Yep.
They got it. Maybe the Director Guild needs to get on top of this thing.
And we're all this preamble that we're going through is all to get to this, which is this is the first film of the superhero world, like you were kind of saying, that it has a lot that it has to do. First of all, it has to explain mutants, it has to explain their world, and it has to bring the X-Men to the general population, whose most recent superhero movies were Mystery Men and Blade. Now, nothing against Blade, but there's a camp factor, especially Mystery Men's like a parody. So it's you're having to convince general audiences to take this world and these characters serious and explain it to them, while also keeping their attention with action sequences, while also like introducing 13 different characters and their relationships to each other. And it's like there's a lot going on here. And despite whatever you want to say about Bryan Singer as a human being and a filmmaker, I think that he does a better job at this time than probably anybody else would have been capable of.
And did you notice that the runtime was an hour 45?
Which is kind of insane.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of crap they cram into this is insane.
Yeah, and I mean nowadays, it's very typical. Like it's pretty atypical that a superhero film, like a tentpole superhero film, is under 2 hours.
Today this movie would be like 220.
Right, 220 exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Really, what he's done is he's sort of, again, it's like you're giving praise to a demon, but he elevated what it was to direct a superhero film. This is elevated direction.
Yeah, well, they got the usual suspects guy.
I know
to do an X-Men film. I wonder. I remember watching behind the scenes, but I never got a sense for like, was he must have been excited to do an X-Men film. And of course, I remember he always said, well, kind of his way in is like gay rights. He's like, oh, is this a way that I could tell a story that matters to me? And when it comes to this material, it's a pretty good fit,
it's a perfect fit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that I'm very mixed on the movie, because obviously to me, and I think to most people, the strongest part of the movie is the casting of Hugh Jackman. And he's not what we would have necessarily expected for Wolverine to be in 2000. He's like kind of too tall, kind of too lean.
Right.
But yet somehow he does embody the character. Like when he's in the set piece where he's like sniffing, which they kind of dropped and he never does again. But
yeah.
And it's like, that's like straight out of the cartoon, right? Like,
right.
You put a leather jacket on the guy, you put a cigar in his mouth, give him the weird fucking haircut, and he can do this animalistic thing that Wolverine has. We wouldn't get the fullness of it until Logan, where we get the berserker rage deal.
So good.
It's so good. You're like, you got this Broadway dancer guy, but it's like he did it. And even the casting of like, could you have picked a better Storm in 2000 than Halle Berry?
Yeah, right. And
James Marsden is Cyclops. James Marsden is kind of bland, like Cyclops. Like he kind of fits.
It's funny. Halle Berry, I think, more than anybody in this film, probably catches shit because there's some fake.
They give her terrible dialogue.
Yeah, and she's got the silver like Spirit Halloween wig and stuff. But you're right, and like that, she is spot on casting for that point in time.
Yeah.
But to me, the one that's like, because if you just got Hugh Jackman, that might be enough. But like Hugh Jackman, Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen is like, okay, now we have something that might last a long time, and that's what happened.
I remember watching Star Trek: The Next Generation. My dad forcing me to watch it, and in syndication, and the whole time I had these conversations with my dad of like, if they ever make an X-Men movie, he's Charles Xavier.
I think everybody thought that. I remember there was a X-Men meet Star Trek: The Next Generation book that had like Xavier and Patrick before this movie came out. I remember a friend had it, and I remember just being like, "So are they just both played by Patrick Stewart?"
It's the most obvious casting in the world, but it's perfect.
Yeah,
it's perfect casting. And so I think what you really have here is they've gotten certain core elements of the story, the characters, the world right. But it almost feels like a rough draft for an X-Men movie that they never quite made.
Yeah, that's true. Like you end up seeing all of the elements of an X-Men movie that should get made across time.
Yes.
I often say like there's you could do like a machete watch order thing. For my money, it would be you start with First Class. Just let First Class be your intro into the X-Men world. And then I would go to X2, and then I would do Days of Future Past, and then I would do Logan, and then I would call it a night.
I think I think most people would agree with you. I think I would too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like Days of Future Past. That's the one that to me feels like the most X-Men-y. Like, oh, this is what reading the comic book felt like.
Yeah, I think it's lovely, and it's Singer again, man.
I know. I know.
You can't be denied.
Of course, Logan feels like a standalone thing, and it's very good, but it
it's
feels
not
like
X-Men. Yeah,
it's not X-Men. Yeah,
right.
And they're even playing with the continuity a little bit, where he's like, "Oh, your adventures," because they have the comic books, and he's like, "It's not always like you read in the comic books. Like some of it was true, some of it wasn't." So they're like kind of fucking around with like, maybe those movies you saw kind of count. Maybe this is a different Logan.
Yeah, it reserves the right to deny those films.
Yes, right. Yeah. Take it however you want to take it and get off our fucking back. But yeah, you're exactly right. The whole series kind of feels like a bunch of drafts. Script drafts for the perfect X-Men movie, the ultimate X-Men film that was never made.
That never quite exists. Yeah,
it doesn't quite exist. Yeah. And there's enough here to like. I think the problem is there's a little bit too many plot threads, and it can't decide who is the character who's going to be our entree into this world. Mm-hmm. Because it gives us Rogue, and we kind of think it's going to be Rogue, and then she disappears. And then just becomes a MacGuffin at the end of the movie, like the plot device.
Yeah.
And then it actually is Logan.
That's right. Yep.
And then you're like, but Logan, and I hate to do it, but the introduction of Logan, where he's like cast in shadow in a dive bar in Canada, beating the shit out of guys. And then like he kind of like comes out of the shadow and like lights his fucking cigar, and then bellies up to the bar. It's like, that's perfect. It's like straight ripped out of a panel. That's exactly right.
And it's very Western. It's very right. It's great.
He's a gunslinger. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Well, I've at the time, of course, I was like, why is Rogue Jubilee or why is Rogue Kitty Pride? But of course, in retrospect, I'm like, you know what? If you're trying to be economic with your characters, even though some people might feel betrayed by never getting the Rogue that was so great in the comics and in the show, but I do really like that I can't touch anybody. I can't connect with anybody.
Yep.
Is an adolescent's nightmare. Yep. And that she would find herself with the most unlikely of mentors in Logan, who also is in his own hell. So I actually do think that pairing is the heart of the film. And even though she kind of gets damseled at the end, which I think is a shame, I think it works. And then of course, for a villain, you have a villain who Magneto is one of the great comic book villains because he has a point, it's that whole thing. And
will you choose to open your comic book movie with the Holocaust?
But that's the big, maybe we should have led with that, which is like,
that sets the tone of this is not what you're used to.
Right. Yeah, it's insane. And the agony of that character too, like ripping a gate apart with his, it is a hell of a way into a movie.
It really is. And I agree with you. Like, I understand why they did it. Right. Mm-hmm. If we're going to introduce the school of gifted students, gifted children, then you kind of need a teenage character. And Rogue was a popular character. And you're right. Her abilities, her powers, her inability to touch and whatever without potentially killing somebody, it kind of goes into, like you said, adolescence, puberty, fears about sexuality, yada, 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 rooting that into a female character, a teenage character, and then kind of letting us see the student body life. Logan, his plot line gets us to see like the Special Forces mutant team, X-Men. And then Rogue's storyline kind of gets us to see the school storyline.
Yeah.
But then they just maybe there was more, but they just sort of drop it.
Oh, well, the other piece though, is that the whole, like, we're going to make more mutants thing. They need Rogue's power to do that.
Yes.
So that kind of, she also serves a plot mechanic thing.
Yeah. But I think the story, her story stops at a certain point and she just becomes a plot function.
Yeah.
And
right. And her power does too. Yeah.
You feel it in the movie and she like just fucking disappears. And then she's all of a sudden appears again. And it's a matter of, we got a lot of fucking story, a lot of characters, a lot of world that we have to build, and we can't serve all. And we're trying to do it economically in an hour and 45. So I think this movie has the same problem that a lot of Bryan Singer films have, especially the ones that he writes, which is there's something sort of cold in his dialogue, almost inhuman.
little stiff.
And a little stiff. And then I think when you realize that he's allegedly maybe a psychopath or sociopath, it's like this guy doesn't know how to write like humans.
Yeah. And you know what? I always thought he came off really awkward in the behind the scenes stuff. Like he seemed a little bit sort of plastic himself.
Yes.
Both in look and in the way, like I remember thinking like, is he joking around with people or is he being in particular, there's a Superman Returns documentary where he's like kind of like an anxious mess the whole time.
Yeah.
And he seems really difficult to work with.
Yes. Yeah. He seems like a very like emotionally stilted human being.
Yeah.
And when you're writing about the X-Men, there's a lot of emotion in X-Men characters in comic books because they're all kind of tortured souls.
Right.
Who are all trying to figure out how to deal with this thing that it puts a social stigma on them. Right. And so I think that's kind of one of the missing ingredients here is like, yeah, we're seeing like, you know, it almost kind of works with Logan because Logan is sort of blocked from his own emotions and he's the man with no name. He's heavily inspired by Clint Eastwood and those sort of, you know, even the comic books, he's from that era, you know, when those spaghetti westerns were being made. And that's kind of part of his conception. So it kind of works with him, but all these other characters, like we gotta feel something from somebody here. And we don't. And I think that the movie suffers because of it. And I think the special effects weren't great in 2000. I was ultimately in 2000 underwhelmed by the movie. I have grown to appreciate what it's attempting to do more in its place in history more. I am still underwhelmed by the movie because I still think these characters work better in a serialized format. That's a hill I will die on as a nerd.
Yeah, but look, I this is not a movie that I'm like, I'd like to pop in X-Men 2000. Like it somehow there's something about it that doesn't really, especially when I have other X-Men films I could be watching that do offer a lot more in the way of the characters and and ultimately are more serialized. So like the nicest thing to say about it, yeah, it's more about its historical place. It's more about this film got it done.
Yeah.
Where other films hadn't gotten it done. Its legacy is more about what would come after it than it's the film itself, really. And I don't know about you, was this the first film? It's the first film I became aware where I was like, why the fuck is everything so blue and silver?
Yes.
And later, you know, by the time you get to 2010 or something, everything is orange and teal. But you know, these color grading trends. But I remember being like, it is rather blue, isn't it?
I think the first one was The Matrix 99, where I'm like, before he gets out, right? And everything's kind of like blue. And then when he goes back in, everything's green. And I'm like, okay. Like, but that kind of obviously makes sense in that world and thematically fits.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one I was like, this feels like somebody saw The Matrix and color graded it. But there's no reason for that because this is an X-Men movie. Why is everything so blue? Yeah.
If there's something that comes to my mind where I'm like, nah, I don't want to watch that movie. It's the Statue of Liberty sequence.
Oh,
I just think of it and I'm like, no, I don't want to watch that fucking movie. And the CG is a really mixed bag around that point. Now, granted, I think there's some really good CG. Like the claws look quite good, especially if you want to compare them to, you know, X-Men Origins or something. But and the Mystique design is like iconic now. I mean, they kept that thing, you know, to the bitter end. And I remember Mystique was probably because of the erotic factor and stuff, but she was a really big piece of the marketing and I think works quite well in the movie for what it is. But that statue, you know, some of those shots of like Wolverine, I don't know, like spinning. Yeah. I just didn't want any of that.
Well, I remember sitting in the theater watching it for the first time. And when he did the spin around like the crown, I cringed. I was like, oh no, this is awful.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah. And I just remember.
And doing it like at the Statue of Liberty or, you know, I mean, granted, like Superman 2 is at the Eiffel Tower and stuff, but there's just something very kind of rote about like, are we really going to go to like a Vegas landmark, you know, for our third act?
Yeah. So for me, I mean, I don't know what I've graded this in the past. This watch, I'd give it like a 6.5 out of 10. It's middling. I think it's a middling film. Of the 5 films that we watched this week, it does fall in my number 2 spot.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
So I gave it a 7 out of 10 and it's also in my number 2 spot.
Okay, all right. Well, let's move on to a first-time complete watch of a dad movie for me. I've seen it chopped and screwed on TNT for 22 years. Of course, I'm talking about The Perfect Storm, which currently has a 46% on Rotten Tomatoes.
We're going back out.
Between job and family.
You're going away again?
Between land and ocean.
I got a woman I can't stand to be away from.
Between fate and courage.
These storms have collided!
Lies the biggest storm in recorded history.
They can't get to us, we'll get to them!
The Perfect Storm. Rated PG-13. Starts Friday, June 30th.
Wow.
This film was directed by the late, great Wolfgang Petersen with a screenplay by William D. Whitliff. It's based on The Perfect Storm by Sebastian Junger. It's a triumphant return of George Clooney, last seen in From Dusk Till Dawn. It's a triumphant return of Mark Wahlberg, last seen in whatever rapey Transformers movie he was in. It's a triumphant return of Diane Lane, last heard in Inside Out. It's a triumphant return of Karen Allen, last seen in Starman. It's a triumphant return of Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, last seen in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. It's a triumphant return of John C. Reilly, last seen in Guardians of the Galaxy. It's a triumphant return of Bob Gunton, last seen in Shawshank Redemption. And is the triumphant return of our patron saint, one of our pantheon, Sir Michael Ironside, last seen in Scanners.
Yes.
This film was released July 30th, 2000, a budget of $120 million. It made $328.7 million. Cash-strapped commercial fishermen dare fate and Mother Nature during the storm of the century.
I have Wreck-It Ralph, Batman, and the guy from Transformers lose the battle of their lives to a rogue wave.
Everything you said is really depressing because you're like, here's all these IPs that they were associated with.
Yeah, well, back then you could just be George Clooney and that would make you some money. Yeah, right.
Diane Lane is the great movie love of my life.
Yeah, you love her?
But her accent and her performance in this movie is egregious.
Dude, I have a note I'm staring at right now that says Diane Lane's accent is a bit much.
Jesus, man. It's like an SNL sketch character.
Now, do you know where I'm from? I'm from this exact area.
Are you really?
Yeah. So I'm an East Coaster. My dad was a sword fisherman.
Wow.
For a long time. Yeah. And he knew something. He didn't know, I think, the particular people who died here, but he is part of that tapestry in a big way. And I remember in this area, it was, I think, much like whenever there's a movie made about a region or about like a people, it's like big news in that area.
Yep.
So this movie, I think, was kind of big news anyhow, because there was a special effects story to be told. There, of course, it was a George Clooney vehicle. It was a biopic, but around here, it was on the news like constantly. It was like everybody had read it and everybody was going to run out and see the movie. Like Gloucester Sword Fisherman. Oh yeah. And I gotta tell you, like, until here's like my really quick review of the whole film. Basically, I think that it's a really strong first act. It really sets up the characters really nicely. And, despite the fact there's some kind of tropey dramatics in it, but I'm okay with that sort of thing. It is a movie, and then I thought like a lot of the details about their profession and about the kinds of people they are, where they would be and what they'd be wearing and the production design, it's all really pretty immaculate. And at some point in the storm itself, my eyes start to cross with the kind of, I feel like I'm getting splashed nonstop and I just kind of check out a little bit, but I also, this is not the only film of our five that have a James Horner score in it. The late great.
I
James
know.
Horner.
Yeah.
And boy, do they go for it. Like in a way that, and I noticed all five of these films anyway, they all are not afraid of their musical scores the way that sometimes films are now.
Well, that brings me to my note where I'm like, this movie is wallpapered with score.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, it hit me and I'm like, oh shit, movies used to have movie scores.
Yeah.
And the movie score used to be prominent in the film.
Right. Right.
I think, okay, this is my first time watching it all the way through. And I'd love to delve into more of your thoughts. The universe has conspired here favorably since you're from the area. But this is my first time watching all the way through. I've seen it bits and pieces. To me, this is like a definitive dad movie,
Yeah, I'd say so.
I don't know if this is on purpose. If it's on purpose, it's genius. If it's not on purpose, it's schmaltz. And either way, I think it's okay. Clooney's casting and the lines that they give him and his performance and the James Horner score, it all feels like almost like a 1950s studio film. There's even a scene where they're on the boat and you can clearly tell that they're on a soundstage.
Yeah.
Because the sunset behind them, the line, you know what I mean? The horizon is just like a wall, like in the Truman Show.
Yeah.
It's the only shot that looks like that in the whole movie. And the score actually, like the whole time, feels like an old Hollywood score. It's sort of big and bombastic and has all these like classical kind of notes to it. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, and his performance that he's delivering and the trajectory of the movie is, this is a movie about hero fishermen who, despite the odds, press through the storm and make it to the other side by nothing but gut and intuition. And of course, because this is based on real events, in the end, they die, right? They do not make it. But the whole movie is building as if these guys are going to make it. They're going to, despite the odds, through hell or high water, by God, John Wayne's going to get them through the storm.
Maybe they'll lose one. Maybe they'll lose one of them, or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what Clooney's playing. Clooney is playing an old Hollywood, not quite John Wayne, because he's always, people compare him to like Clark Gable or Gary Cooper or one of these guys.
Yeah.
But totally. He's playing that old Hollywood. And it's like, okay, was he cast because that's what he invokes? Was the score written? And is the whole thing, either from the screenplay level or from Petersen's direction, intentionally shaped like an old Hollywood heroic, they're gonna make it movie, so that the reveal that they do not make it is that much more heartbreaking? Are we trying to trick the audience in a sense of being like, oh, they might make it? Or is it just schmaltz? And
that's such a good point.
They didn't know tonally what they were doing.
Yeah.
Because if they knew what they were doing and they were in control of it, they did a hell of a job, because the whole thing is a subversion of old Hollywood.
I have a theory about what happened, and unfortunately it's not as intelligent as any of that. But I think I also registered that subconsciously while watching. Like, I know how things ended up historically, and yet I'm watching it going like, they're going to make it. And it's funny because obviously you wouldn't want to spoil a thing like that for the audience. That should be the tension of watching the entire film, is will they or won't they? And yet everything that's signified, from the score to the performance to even the setup of each character, like, you're not going to let John C. Reilly not see that little boy that he spoke to at the beginning of the movie, right? That would be totally way too tragic for the kind of film that this is, for the way everything is framed. Most films, if they're going to have that tragic of an ending, they want to let the audience in on it a little bit, so that it's not just devastating. But I think what happened was, I think that the production was very much in contact with these families and the families of the people who died. And I think that they were really enmeshed in the culture and the people who, like, I think, like, because this was 1991, they made this movie in 2000. So I think this was still a really, really fresh cultural event. And I think that they were like, one of their priorities was to do right and be really respectful to the characters, to the point of romanticizing them ridiculously, like, and being like, kind of erring on the side of schmaltzy, to really like pick these people up. And so much so that an audience member who doesn't really know the story might be like, what happened? They died in the end after all that, but you're right. It's very old Hollywood. It's very, like Mark Wahlberg being like, hey, but Cap, we put up a hell of a fight, didn't we?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, his whole character is 100% a sidekick character from a 1950s studio. It's like, oh, but by God, Cap, you're the best Cap I've ever crewed with, and we're gonna make it straight to the sunrise. We're gonna get through, and it's just like, holy shit, like this is 100% like a 50s character. Gee Willikers, that's what he's bringing to it,
I remember Wahlberg said that he spent a ton of time with the family of the character he played, and like, it was very important to him that he was respectful to the person. So I think I think that they overcorrected. They were overly conscious of like, we don't want to just kill the fuck out of these guys, you know?
Does that accidentally though make the movie better?
Yeah, because ultimately there's this massive subversion, right? Yeah, it's a good point.
Because a movie like this could potentially be made today, like a true event, biopic, you know, whatever, tragedy. But I think if it was written today, I think they would tip their hand a hell of a lot more up front of like, all these people are going to die. Right. You'd almost go into it knowing like this is a feel bad film. We're going to watch these guys suffer and die. And that would almost be like, they would market it as like, you're going to watch guys suffer and die for like 2 hours,
right.
You know?
Yeah.
And almost make it and almost get rescued, but they're not going to. And you're going to feel every harrowing emotion that they felt on that boat. And and I think we're still in this weird, that 90s era, because we're, 2000s is like, just because the calendar changed, these are all 90s movies.
Yeah.
This is cultural hangover shit.
Yep.
I think we're still in that 90s studio thing where it's like, and you're right. If they did get really, and it's, from production to release, and from this happening 91, very short window of time. And you're going to be embedded in that community and actually try to involve them. It just makes me wonder if somewhere along the way, either in the edit or maybe it was Horner himself, was like, because he saw the footage coming in and the cut, and it was such a romanticized view of it, he's got to give it this romanticized score.
Yeah.
And that immediately creates that old Hollywood feel. You know, I just wondered to what degree was it like kismet, and what degree was it somebody somewhere along the way was like, well, shit, we just made a fucking Gary Cooper Steamboat Willie movie. Like we gotta embrace that.
Yeah, maybe it may be one of the last like that. It's I think if I had watched it in 2007 or something, I'd be like, oh man, remember how schmaltzy fucking movies were?
Yes.
But now it's that we've been separated from that kind of that earnestness for long enough. It's sort of like, well, yeah, but some stories are about heroes, and some stories are about people who we've lost, and maybe we can remember them in a romantic way. Maybe that's, I think we have an instinct to like, when you, anytime you depict something with rose-colored glasses, it feels insincere or dishonest. It's like, well, it's not emotionally dishonest if the people involved like wanted to make this movie. It's an interesting problem.
It's a I went into it definitely with that feeling of like, because again, I hadn't seen it all the way through. I'd seen bits and pieces of it through the years, and I'm like, oh God, I wanted to sit through this. But I felt, this is old man speak, but like they don't make them like this anymore. They don't. They just don't. This, like I said, this story might be made, but it wouldn't be made like this. And for me, the roguish charm of Clooney, and then the fact that it doesn't lead to overcoming. That every time they overcome one death scenario, it just leads them to a worse scenario until they are dead, and he just goes down with the ship. I think that's like, it's pretty bleak, and it's pretty bleak for a mainstream blockbuster. Like that's really bleak.
Yeah.
And
I actually wonder if they did it kind of along these lines today, maybe it would make a bunch of money. If Top Gun Maverick showed us nothing, like maybe you could start to do a little more of this, and the older set would come out for it.
I mean, we're the older set now, so
So the question is, would the dads our age go for the schmaltz, or are we too fucking jaded? Because we are, pretty.
Yes.
We're so overly media literate that we see through this sort of thing really quickly. And that, that's the challenge, I think, for storytellers is like, well, how do you take a cynical generation and at least occasionally deliver them something that's maybe overly sincere?
Yeah. Here's the thing, as a cynical generation movie podcaster guy on the internet, maybe it was the throwback, maybe it's nostalgia. It worked for me. I give this a 7.5 out of 10. Not the world's best score, but I think of the 5 films we watched this week, I think it's the best. It's my number 1.
Wow. Yeah. So I gave it a 7 out of 10, and it was my third. Yeah, third. There's 2 other, I like X-Men and another film better.
Okay.
But I like, yeah, I'm on the side of like, I liked it. I was like walking around for a week telling people about The Perfect Storm. I'll confess. I went into, when I saw the list, I was like, man, this might be a slog. And then I was really grateful for the experience of watching, like just dedicating some of my time and attention to thinking about where film culture has gone in 22 short years. It's really been educational and helpful for me. You've got a good thing going here, Jason, with this concept. It makes me think like, maybe I'll do this with 95. Maybe I'll do this with 05. Like, just to, what was competing for people's attention, and what was succeeding in grabbing their attention.
Well, let's move on to a movie that I thought, oh boy, I don't know. We'll get into it because I'm doing the mental math of Frankie's calculations, and we're getting down to the wire.
Oh, so you think there's a disagreement coming? Okay, good.
There might be, yeah. The numbers are starting to diverge here, at least the rankings. I'm talking about 2000's Meet the Parents, which currently has a astounding 84% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I milked a cat once.
Greg is spending the weekend with his girlfriend's parents.
I had no idea you could milk a cat.
Oh yeah, you can milk anything with nipples.
I have nipples, Greg. Could you milk me?
What could possibly go wrong?
Jake's strictly a house cat. You can't let him outside.
From the director of Austin Powers.
You tried to milk him, didn't you, you sick son of a...
Robert De Niro, Ben Stiller.
You okay, sweetie? Yeah.
Meet the Parents, rated PG-13, at theaters Friday, October 6th.
This film was directed by Jay Roach with a screenplay by Jim Hertzfeld and John Hamburg. It's a story by Greg Galina and Mary Ruth Clark. I'll get into that in a second. It's triumphant return of Ben Stiller, last seen in Something About Mary. Triumphant return of Robert De Niro, last seen not since the days of Cape Fear. It's triumphant return of Owen Wilson, last seen in Armageddon. It's triumphant return of James Rebhorn, who is greatly missed, last seen in Independence Day. It is based on Meet the Parents by Greg Galina and Mary Ruth Clark, which was an independent short, which is available on YouTube if you want to watch it. It's not very good. It was released October 6th, 2000 at a budget of $55 million. Oh my God. $55 million for that, which is a lot of money for a comedy, but it made $330.4 million. This movie would tank today. It would flop. Yeah. It would be on VOD the next week. It would just, oh my God. Idiot RN schleps his way through meeting his ladies' folks and finds out she and her entire family are toxic weirdos.
Ben Stiller and Robert De Niro deliver stellar comedy performances in a relatable and sometimes overly zany comedy, while their female co-stars do basically nothing.
Hit the divergence button, baby. Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it. And let me tell you this, I had never seen it before.
Holy shit. Okay.
Yeah.
I had seen it and I'm sitting there going, I know I've aged. I know I'm old now because the whole time I'm watching it, all I'm doing is thinking through the real world implications of this movie.
Yeah.
It's like Greg cannot think on his feet in a single instance. There's not a single instance in which he can think clearly on his feet. And no matter how awkward a first meeting is between your significant other and you or other life events, you could come up with half a dozen better examples of whatever the fuck than what this guy does.
You talking about milking cats or what?
I'm talking about, I'm reading through a pregnancy magazine and,
right.
It's a breast pump. And also like, it's a culture shift because it's like one of the big jokes in the movie is he's a male nurse. It's like, okay.
Right. Yeah. That's pretty much expired now. Although, there's still, I have an in-law who like would still be hung up, and it would be, so you'd have to like frame it differently nowadays where you'd be like, he'd be the odd one out,
Yes. Yeah. Pam puts Greg in exceedingly unfair circumstances.
I watched it with my wife and she was like, this fucking girlfriend is the worst.
Yes. She's the worst. Your wife is 100% right. And here, because the script makes it seem as if she doesn't know her family. Because the only way she'd put this guy in these circumstances is if she had been adopted out and this was the first time she was meeting her biological parents.
Yeah.
You were raised by these people. And I guess you could make the argument of this is her family culture. And so maybe she's not as aware of how it would feel to outsiders, but the script kind of wants to have it both ways to where she kind of knows it's unfair, but she still kind of sides with the family, and she also sets him up to fail. And it's like, it's to your point, even though you were positive with the movie, I think the women, and Pam in particular, is a horrifically underwritten character.
Yeah.
And she's a linchpin character to make sense of, because she is literally the linchpin between these two worlds.
She's
the world in Chicago, and her world back home. And it's just the Ben Stiller show as he's flying blindly, stupidly through one fuck up after another. And I'm like, the only engaging thing about this movie for me is I'm going, okay, this movie is like somewhere between an old era studio comedy and like a precursor to like the cringe comedy that we would start to get in the early 2000s, like The Office and stuff like that.
Yep.
And I'm like, this is that middle ground. Like, it still feels like it's not a Jim Carrey movie.
Yeah, right.
But it's also not The Office, but it's somewhere in between, you know?
It's so funny you say that. I was going to make that exact same point about like this movie doesn't rely entirely on I mean, of course, the whole movie is about fumbling, and yet it doesn't go full Office or full awkward, full cringe, full Larry David, at every turn. I hand wave most of your critiques, all of which are valid enough. Under the guise of it's a studio comedy. So if we I think if we hit the ground running, if the whole movie was effectively like the second half, then I'd have like a real issue. But I think that there is an impeccable first act here. Every single plot thread, if you just talked about like pure comedy screenwriting, it's done economically, and every plot thread is set up and well conserved and used ultimately in the film, and they converge, and I think in reasonably intelligent ways. I love even just like, okay, I'm going to do this proposal, and it's going to be entirely outside of her dad and her family situation, which I don't really know. Having the kid, so there's a visual thing with the kids. Of course, if she was a more developed character, like her teaching would matter more to the plot or something.
Yes.
But I like that if the proposal hadn't gotten a little fucked up, the whole movie doesn't happen. So there's kind of, I like that she suggests like, oh yeah, there's kind of a better way to do this. Oh, okay, I'll go do that. I think that Ben Stiller, while he is written to make unreasonable mistakes, I think that they're stepped up over time. Because I actually think his character's performance, not his performance, his character's performance with the family is halfway decent. In like, you're empathizing quite a bit with him. Where you're like, well, that joke wasn't that unfunny, or that's maybe something I would say to somebody I had just met. But also, like, making him totally flat-footed. I think it's genius to just be like, yeah, you don't even have your own clothes. To not have your own clothes is like, yeah, you're gonna fuck up everything if you don't have your bag that has what you need. Like you've been disadvantaged in a really unfair way, and the guy that you need to impress is giving you zero grace, and like you need a little grace right from the start because you don't have your clothes. I think that because this movie ranges from relatable to unrelatable, and actually I think that that's kind of where a lot of its magic is, because to make it a kind of a broad studio comedy, you get to the zany parts, and I do think that there's parts that are a little overly zany, but I think where it doesn't quite fit. But like the relatable stuff, when we've all, at least I have, like you show up to like your in-laws like breakfast and they're all put together and you're kind of the fucked up one. You're the one that's in PJs still and somehow when they make a joke, it lands with everybody. When you make a joke, it never lands.
Okay,
You know?
right there. That scene is, we could dissect that scene. That scene is perfectly at what I'm trying to get at, right?
Yep.
Pam's like, oh, I thought you'd want to sleep in. She's so keen on him making a good impression. There's no chance she doesn't wake his ass up early and make sure he's dressed and down at that table early, because she knows that would impress her father, right?
Well, I'll say one thing. She doesn't know that he's planning on a proposal. I'm just saying.
But she knows that her dad is a stickler, because he got the whole family's day fucking plan. He's like, if you're not 5 minutes early, you're 10 minutes late. And she knows it about her dad.
Yeah.
But what does work about that scene is the second part you brought up, which is that dynamic of somebody makes a joke and it lands, and you make a similar joke and nobody gives you anything. That is, I think, where, okay, if there was more of that and less of Pam's character has no goddamn common sense about her own father, but it's like, despite her attempts to set Greg up for success, it gets fucked up anyways.
Right.
That to me is a better plot mechanism than she just like, what, you got to really impress my dad, and but I'm not going to help you.
I haven't seen the sequels. Did they sort out this issue with Pam?
No, she's less of a character in the second one, and almost non-existent in the third one. And I know that because I revisited the entire trilogy after watching this. I was like, fuck, I got to watch all of this shit to see. And I was like, no. The best part of the next movie is Dustin Hoffman and Barbara Streisand. And then you were talking about zany. It goes full zany, but it's Dustin Hoffman. So you're like, he can do it.
Yeah, for sure. De Niro is obviously nailing it here, I think. Yeah, you could imagine a De Niro performance where he says yes, and he's not fully committed to what he's supposed to be doing in the film.
No, he's on board here for sure. Yes.
Yeah, right. So that work, so to the extent that his character is saying or asking for things that don't quite make sense, like he papers over that, I think, with the performance. But I really do think Ben Stiller's performance, because he's able to kind of ride this line between like that he's an embarrassment, but also he's kind of like a sexy, charming guy. And so, he can play both. And I actually think that this is like Owen Wilson really shined in this.
Yes, I agree.
I love the whole so instead of criticizing him for nursing, he's like, oh, you must be investing in biotech.
Right.
I thought that all worked really well. But yeah, it's got the kinds of problems you might expect from a studio comedy, but here's a thought. Because you made the point about this movie would never make any money today. And you're right. If that movie had been a Thanksgiving movie or a Christmas movie at the time, I think it would be even more of a classic today than it is now. Everybody would watch the movie about how hard it is to visit family. They would watch it every fucking year. It would become Home Alone. I really think that.
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree with you. Pro tip in real life, folks: don't propose to your fiance at her sister's wedding.
Right?
Or your girlfriend. Don't propose to anybody during significant life events for them or their family. Propose on a random fucking Tuesday. Don't propose on Christmas. Don't propose on Thanksgiving. Don't do that. Just like pick a fucking Tuesday. Don't do that. Don't propose to them on their graduation. Just don't do it. I come from kind of like the Ebert school of thinking about comedies in the sense of like, how much did the movie make me laugh? Because at the end of the day, it's not about the plot. It's not even about the writing. It's like, did the movie make you laugh? If it made you laugh, then it's a success because it's a comedy. If it didn't make you laugh, the two biggest laughs for me, which maybe is my sensibility as a person, is James Rebhorn trying to strangle that cat.
That is great.
He's like, Jinxie, you son of a bitch. He's trying to get out of the cat.
Isn't the character wasted in that scene too?
I think so. Yeah. Just him breaking into that room and the whole room is trashed, and he plays it so seriously.
Yeah.
As if he really wants to strangle a member of the family, and they don't even address it's a cat, obviously, but it's just like it's so perfect. I got the biggest laugh. My second biggest laugh is just how vacant the stare is of the flight attendant, the gate person. when it's almost like a John Hughes reveal where it's kind of close-ups and shot reverse shot of close-ups, and then we get the wide shot and there's nobody in the terminal and there's just a guy vacuuming, and then he's right in front of her and she's just like big-eyed and just like staring in every direction but his, and then waits all of like 3 seconds and then finally lets him on as if he hadn't been standing there the whole time. I thought that was funny.
Just the visual comedy of like,
yes,
like we have we're covering this scene with 3 shots, and when we choose to cut to the wide, the close, it works. Yeah, it
works. It was classic comedy, and her performance is great because there's just nothing fucking there. Like and the thing is, like that we talk about relatable. We've all had, it's an exaggeration, but we've all had an airport experience where it's like they're just completely being unreasonable.
Yeah.
And it's just bringing out how arbitrary so many of these rules are.
Right.
You couldn't do bomb on a plane. This is definitely a pre 9/11 movie. It couldn't be your climax of your family comedy.
Isn't that funny? 1 year later.
1 year later. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts about Meet the Parents since you loved it?
Well, they since I loved it so very much, it does get wrapped up awfully quick. I mean, Ben Stiller like destroys the urn. He burns down the house. He abuses animals. And then there's a quick lie detector test and we get past it, so not a strong ending, but a very strong opening. And I think a really good broad comedy. That's what
yeah. He lets the cat loose. Yeah. What did you say? We molest an animal. What did you say?
Abused an animal. Yeah. Molest. I'll go with molest.
Yeah. It's so horrible. Yeah. Yeah. They think he's like the retrograde aspect of this. I guess you could kind of believe it with De Niro's character is just how they treat marijuana as if it's crack cocaine. Just like, that wouldn't
work today nearly as much. Although, again, it would be funny if you still had this. It would put him as the odd man out. Like there'd be this one character who still thinks that marijuana is crack cocaine.
Oh, that's the thing is you'd have to almost reverse the movie now.
Yeah.
To where like the De Niro character, like you said, would be the one like nothing's landing and all of like the woke family isn't like he's just not jiving with people.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't think you could make a funny movie about a conservative uncle going to Thanksgiving and him be the sympathetic character.
No. No. Well, yeah, you could probably do the All in the Family dynamic of you'd have to sort of make the Ben Stiller and the Archie Bunker, just polar opposites and kind of caricatures of both of their sides. So if you wanted to keep it somewhat broad and not piss 50% of the country off, sort of like jab at both of them, but you would fail at that task.
Yes. Yeah. Here's how you have to do it, and you'd still fucking fail.
That's right.
If you had to give this a score out of 10, what would you give it, and where's it rank for you?
8 out of 10. It was my favorite of the bunch.
Jesus Christ.
I would meet these parents.
So being added to the guest list is Meet the Parents. Thanks to Frankie. It's not going to make it to my short list. Obviously, I give it a 6 out of 10. It comes in as my number 3, which means I think we're going to agree on our final film.
Yeah.
What a trip. I'm talking about
what a piece
How
of
the
shit.
Grinch Stole Christmas, which currently has a 49% on Rotten Tomatoes.
This holiday season, Merry Christmas! Experience the movie that's captured the hearts of audiences around the world. Jim Carrey is The Grinch.
There'll be no sad faces on Christmas.
Rated PG. Now playing.
This film was directed by Ron Howard. It was written by Jeffrey Price, Peter S. Seaman. Triumphant return of Anthony Hopkins, last seen in the MCU. Triumphant return of Mindy Sterling, last seen in Austin Powers. Triumphant return of Vern Troyer, last seen in Austin Powers. Triumphant return of Bryce Dallas Howard, last seen in Twilight, one of those sequels. Triumphant return of Jim Carrey, last seen in Liar Liar. And it's the triumphant return of Deep Roy, last seen in Going Bananas. This film, of course, is based on Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. It was released November 17th, 2000. And a budget of $123 million, it made $345.1 million. And as a teen in the new millennium, I swore to myself and all my movie nerd friends I'd never fucking see this movie. And I broke my one rule, the vow I made to my childhood self, by sitting here to talk about it with Frankie for my listeners. Psychopath monster seeks Yuletide revenge against the toxic town that traumatized him at Christmas.
Jim Carrey fights through miles of makeup to express emotion and comes out victorious. But to do it, he has to deliver a performance that would make Daffy Duck and Urkel blush.
Oh, okay. This is the first time I've seen this movie. I put it up on the internet on Twitter at Binge Movies and said, I'm watching this movie. And it was about a 50-50 split from Film Twitter. Half of Film Twitter is like, this is the worst movie I've ever seen in my entire life, which is what Film Twitter says about a lot of movies. The other half said, I love this movie. It is now a family staple. I have so much nostalgia for it. A younger version of me in a different season of this show would be like, fuck you, you're wrong. This movie sucks. The older I get, the more I realize that the things that we are nostalgic for are not the things themselves. They are the things that they remind us of. As these movies remind you of the love of your life, your wife, who you've had, 25 years almost of a relationship with, and children and all this stuff, you're going to maybe grade some of these movies a little less harshly because there's a connotation there.
Totally.
The movies remind us of the people who are in our life, and they remind us of the people who used to be in our life. And if there's a Christmas movie and maybe our grandparents aren't around anymore, or maybe our parents as we get up there in age, maybe siblings, things we've lost, people we've lost. It's hard for me to then be like, yeah, but there's too many Dutch angles in this movie. Your childhood is wrong. Your experience is wrong. Stop loving things that I don't like. That being said, is Ron Howard trying to be Tim Burton? Or did Tim Burton see this movie and be like, that's what the last half of my career is going to be?
For some reason, Ron Howard said, oh, that would be really fun. That would be like a big budget, it would be like a pleasure to adapt as such a classic. And for some reason he thought, and the way to do it is to make it a live action cartoon. So you can sort of be like, oh yeah, okay. Cause it's a Chuck Jones animated film and stuff.
Yep.
And then he's like, yeah. And who's Daffy Duck? Jim Carrey. And then, before long you're like, wait, why is the Grinch like a this fucking crazy? Right. And so for me, the perspective that I think I can bring to it is there is a 2018 one directed by Scott Mosier, of all people, from Illumination Studios. My daughter loves it. We've seen it a bunch of times. So I've had a lot of time to think about how they adapted we read the book at, around Christmas time too. And we watch the film. So I've always wondered, like, what would it take to adapt a feature length version of this story? And I had not seen this from beginning to end until now. Also, thanks to you.
God bless.
And so, like, if you hadn't seen the feature length adaptations, anybody would start with the same problems. You would start with, well, the villain is also the protagonist. That works in a 15-minute cartoon. So you're like, so what do I do there? We're going to need some supporting characters. And clearly the Cindy Lou Who character is, should be prominent in some way. And then the other question is, like, when does the Christmas stealing take place narratively? And if it's, is it in the second act? And so then there's like a lot of falling action after it, or do we have this whole other movie? And then the third act is, stealing Christmas. And for some reason, Ron Howard went with that. Now here's an observation I was able to make by seeing both films. In this adaptation, the Grinch is manic. So they're both, you have to, if you're going to do a feature, you're going to have to explain why is he such a fucking Grinch. And it's because he's your protagonist, it's going to have to be a sympathetic reason.
Yep.
In the 2018 one, it was because he was like an orphan around Christmas time. He didn't have a family. So he's depressed. And to this day, he's like an overeating, self-secluding, doesn't really like people, kind of antisocial. And in this one, he actually still does live in Whoville. So like he is a known quantity. He's not like just some monster. Like he goes shopping. He just fucking hates shopping in the 2018 one. He, like people sing Christmas carols at him and he's like, ugh, like leave me alone. So actually it's a little bit relatable. Like if you ever, if you feel like over Christmased, but he's depressed. That's the key. And he's manic in this. He's like, he snapped and he's not necessarily like, I don't get a lot of evil from him in this. I get a lot of like the Riddler, I guess. I don't know.
The prosthetics here are deeply disturbing. And I don't mean
why did they make that decision with the Who villains? Like why?
That's what I mean. I don't mean the Grinch.
No, yeah.
I mean the Who villains, the Who folk are fucking Twilight Zone. Beauty in the Eye of the Beholder, terrifying. Like something's
and you
wrong
can tell
with their
they
face.
knew it because they didn't make Cindy Lou Who have all that makeup on her face because it would have made her deeply unsympathetic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also the characterization of the town is they're horrible. They're horrible people. And Christmas is all about materialism for it, and they need to learn a lesson too. Yeah. It doesn't work. Ironically, this is the most handsome Clint Howard has ever looked in a film.
That's true, actually. I thought the same thing.
When they panned across and it's like, oh God, Jeffrey Tambor looks like a monster. All these character actors are like monsters. And then it gets to like Clint Howard. I was like, he looks kind of handsome. That's the most normal he's ever looked.
That's true. I have the Who's are terribly cruel. It'd be one thing if like they were a little off-putting or something. They're terribly cruel. Like this is a town that needs saving, actually. Well, I guess that's kind of how they set it up. They're like Cindy Lou Who is going to kind of heal everybody because actually we're all dysfunctional, and from the Grinch on down, which I don't think that's how you want to tell your Grinch story.
No, I think the idea is that it's going to like engender more conflict or something, or more resolution and pad out the story, but it doesn't work because then there's no contrast. There's no contrast between the town and the Grinch because the town hasn't embraced the true spirit of Christmas.
Right.
And even in the face of adversity, they continue to embrace the true spirit of Christmas and generosity. And that's what transforms his heart, which is basically the book. It's, oh no, they're horribly materialistic, actively cruel, vindictive towards each other. They're all fuckos, and they all need to learn the big lesson because of this annoying little girl. And it just it stinks. It doesn't work. The Grinch being raised by elderly lesbian swingers is an interesting choice. And I'm like, why do we have a flashback at a key party? A key party?
They needed. Yeah, they probably had a contractual runtime, Jason.
But why would you they found baby Grinch in the midst of an orgy. They were getting ready to have a partner swap. I'm not joking. That is a scene in this movie where they're having a key party and the two lesbians are like, well, we'll raise him.
I thought they were sisters. They weren't sisters?
I don't think they're sisters, buddy. Sisters at a key party is a different level of depravity.
Who are the Grinch's adopted parents? Who are they exactly? Clarinella Who, one of the Grinch's adopted mothers from childhood, and Rose Who. Yeah, you might be right. I'm right for once.
Okay.
The Grinch arrived in Whoville as a baby and was adopted by two elderly sisters.
Okay, all right. The key party is still real, though.
Okay, fine. Fair enough.
Don't you remember that scene where they're having a Christmas party? Everybody's putting their keys in a bowl?
Yeah. It's a key party.
Yeah. Okay, so the sisters having a key party. I don't have anything against the Grinch being raised by lesbians. I just thought it was a weird choice to make them swingers.
What about incest lesbians?
Yeah, now they're sister swingers, which is weird. Rest in peace to this gentleman, but Josh Ryan Evans as a child Grinch is nightmare fuel.
Oh, it's so weird.
Now, do you remember the daytime soap Passions that he was a star of?
Yes, of course.
I would hold the hand of the one who could lead.
And it was like a witch, and he was like the witch's sidekick, and he would do like magic on this town.
Oh my God, he died 2 years later.
Oh, yeah. He's roughly our age, I think. And he obviously died from complications due to his illness. But
terrible.
Yeah. He was the star of Passions. Insert Passions clip here.
You are the fire burning inside of me. You are my passion
they'd be like, what the hell is this? Because it was like the daffiest soap opera. It was like they knew what they were making. They were like, we're making trash. And so and we're gonna have supernatural elements and like resurrections and like it was just absolutely bonkers on purpose.
Yes.
And it was almost parody, but played straight. It was very strange. It was on for a while, and he was like a big star in that. And I knew he was in this movie. I didn't know he'd be playing a really evil child Grinch. And to your point, like, okay, they're trying to make him a sympathetic character. But when we go back to him as a child, he is a psychopath.
Yeah.
He's like drawing Santa Claus on fire and shit like that. And it's like, that's before he's been traumatized. So he was always crazy.
It was his instinct. It was his instinct to at least ruin Christmas a little.
Yes. So it undercuts this, like, oh, well, this horrible thing happened to him, which is just basically like the girl he liked didn't like him and he was carried like at 7 years old. I don't know. Here's what I'm saying. On a script level and a story level, this movie's a fucking disaster.
He's flying into Martha's boobs and stuff. Like there's like sexual harassment going on.
Oh.
Sexual assault, I should say.
Jim Carrey is somehow the best part of this movie, despite the fact that this may be him at his most shrill. And that says something.
Right. Yeah, because relative to what you're watching otherwise, if it did feel to me like they were, they had because the whole movie is very soundstagey, like highly soundstagey. It really feels like I'm watching like Grinch on Ice and it felt like they had, especially during like the stealing of Christmas and You're a Meme One, Mr. Grinch, they needed to fill time with like isolated visual gags. And it kind of felt like they just set up camera and were like, all right, Jim, what do you think the next one could be? Yep. And it's, he's pretty damn inventive. He figures out, he of course has that big fupa and stuff and that like, he can have fun with that. So, but yeah, the way it's shot to your, like the canted angle thing, it gives me like Meet the Feebles vibes. It's got kind of like 90s, like Peter Jackson, like grotesque, film,
It is grotesque. But it's also like got Gauzy and Blur all over it. And so you're just like, it's like a little bit like a Christmas Story, but that makes sense because it's a recollection of an older man. And so having a little blur on the film makes sense. But this is, it's almost shot like a horror movie. You're exactly right. Like a 90s horror movie, a decade late, but it's a big, massive budget comedy Christmas film. It's everything about this is like cattywampus. It's just like disturbed. It's like several things had to go wrong here on every conceivable level.
With another schmaltzy James Horner score.
Yes. But this time it's when that little girl breaks out that Faith Hill song, I'm like, oh no.
Oh yeah, she can't fucking sing. She cannot sing.
No.
It would have been. Yeah, I don't know how you leave a thing like that in a film.
And it's not like, well, that's from the special that everybody knows and watches every year. Right. No, that's an original song. Yeah. Dub it or cut it. Get rid of it.
Where are you, Christmas?
Oh, it's Christmas, local elementary school Christmas pageant level singing. Nothing against that young lady, and she's also very annoying. I'm sorry. Her performance is bad. She's annoying. Yeah. It's hard to knock kids, but she sucks. And I give it a 4 out of 10. It's the worst of the week. This movie sucks. I'm sorry. I don't mean to trample. If you love this movie, I'm not telling you you're wrong because that's your experience. I'm just telling you that as a grown man watching it for the first time, 20 some years later, nothing about it worked. Nothing.
I agree. I will be sticking with the 2018 version, which is a pretty good adaptation, the Benedict Cumberbatch one. I gave it a 4 out of 10. The worst one, the biggest surprise of all, because I always wondered, like, how did they pad out that runtime? The majority of the movie is him winning that award. Like that's the major. Like it's like how the Grinch got an award should have been the title of the film.
All right, Frankie, it's time for a recap. Coming in dead last for me is How the Grinch Stole Christmas, which has a 4 out of 10, according to me. Coming number 4 is What Lies Beneath, which you give a 5 out of 10. Coming in number 3, Meet the Parents, give it a 6 out of 10. Number 2 is X-Men with a 6.5 out of 10. And number 1, surprising myself and the whole world, The Perfect Storm, which gives a 7.5 out of 10. What is your recap?
So we just disagree. Perfect Storm and Meet the Parents are swapped, and
Okay.
our scores are pretty darn similar. So How the Grinch Stole Christmas at number 5, 4 out of 10. What Lies Beneath at number 4, 4 out of 10, but a slightly higher 4 out of 10. The Perfect Storm 7 out of 10. X-Men 7 out of 10, and Meet the Parents 8 whopping numbers out of 10.
All right.
It worked on me, man. My only complaint, make it be said at Christmas time, please.
All right, our very next episode, we'll be ranking the top 5 highest grossing films of 2000, which includes Dinosaur, What Women Want, Castaway, Gladiator, and Mission Impossible 2. Well, you've now been through the ringer of Binge Movies for the first time. You've discovered that it's a bizarre, fascinating, and mind-bending experience. Frankie, thanks for doing this, man. I really appreciate it. Where can the fine listeners at home find you, support you? Where are the like buttons for them to smash? Where are the subscribe buttons for them to click? Where are the bell buttons for them to push so they get notifications? All that jazz.
Yeah, the best way to keep up with me, if you enjoy listening to me talk about movies, or if you want to watch me cook mac and cheese, or you want to watch our catalog of honestly thousands of videos and also of several feature films, subscribe to Red Cow Entertainment on YouTube, and subscribe to Red Cow Arcade for all the podcast content. And of course, we have a store where you can buy our movies and stuff at redcowentertainment.com/store.
Ladies and gentlemen, until next time, binge on.